I am the cracks in the mirror, yet I still shine bright. I am the storm and the stillness, a mix of shadow and light. I am the journey, not the end, a masterpiece in progress. I am the voice that whispers hope. In chaos I find rest. Sometimes I wish I was flawless, but then I'd miss the beauty in the mess. I am beautifully imperfect, a canvas filled with scars. I am every broken piece, reaching for the stars. I am the fire that doesn't fade, even when it's hard. I am beautifully imperfect, and that's my greatest art. I am the laughter after tears, the courage in my fears. I am the dreamer chasing light through every passing year. Sometimes I wish I could rewind, erase the pain I've known, but every step has shaped my soul and helped me find my home. Sometimes I wish I was flawless, but then I'd miss the beauty in the mess. I am beautifully imperfect, a canvas filled with scars. I am every broken piece, reaching for the stars. I am the fire that doesn't fade, even when it's hard. I am beautifully imperfect, and that's my greatest art. I am the rhythm of my heart, I am the light within the dark. Sometimes I wish I could escape, but I am enough, I choose my fate.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Mercy Queen podcast. Today, this episode is on mercy and being assertive, done by Shabana Markar alone. The last episode, we had the distinct honor of having Jose Badillo from Second Chance to Light. And so today, I am just having myself, and we're doing a continuation. I'm doing a continuation of assertiveness and what it means to be assertive in the modern day versus aggressive. And I'm going to go ahead and share some of my journeys of how long it took me to become assertive and confident, and being able to speak my mind with confidence and kindness and empathy. And of course, mercy. So assertiveness, by definition, is the quality of being self-assured and confident without being aggressive to defend a right or point of view. And or to make a relative statement without having to be aggressive. And so the first thing I wanted to say, I usually start my podcast with a story about mercy and how it ties into the topic. And so today I'm going to share a story about mercy from my life in relations to being assertive and versus aggressive. And it's something that's actually being offered as an apology. But to kind of share the narration of the story, my father was in the hospital one night, and he ended up entering into a coma state, which he never woke up from. And I remember the night that I was allowed to stay with him, I had asked the nurse a question: have you ever seen someone come out of the coma state within the 72 hours? And he said, yes, it does happen. But he said it has to be kind of little steps, because he was intubated. So basically, if he had woken up all of a sudden, he could have choked. He could have gone into respiratory failure once again from the shock. And so one night when I was with him, I started to realize that people were coming, they were reciting a lot of prayers, and I was looking at his vitals. And so I basically created a song list that represented my father. And some of the songs were, everybody was kung fu fighting. Some of them was Annie, the sun will come out tomorrow, because they're all memories of songs. Some of them were religious songs that he used to listen to, love songs for my mom. And I realized in my mind that I wanted our family to basically play this song list every 2 hours and do small motions with his hands, so that hopefully when he wakes up, he'll start kind of regaining muscle memory, which is not proven in science. But this was kind of a way, when I was looking at his vitals at nighttime, a plan that I had devised as his lovely daughter who loved him, to help him wake up with security, and hopefully he would come out of his coma. So I created the song list at night and I had it ready for my family and I was dying for everybody to participate. And it seemed like nobody was interested in participating, probably because they're enduring their own grief. And I remember I'd gone to a specific uncle and I had said, Did you listen to my song list? And he basically said that kind of anything that comes from you, I don't want to participate in. And I snapped. I snapped and I was disrespectful to my uncle and my aunt. And keep in mind that I realized that I didn't just snap because in my mind there was two reasons. One reason was because it wasn't just a matter of me not being assertive in the situation where for me my father's life was on the line. So to me it's like this was to me in my mind I felt that had I been able to, you know, use a song list that perhaps maybe he would recover in a more effective way. So it was a matter of life and death and it was for my father. But the other reason I kind of snap is because this is kind of an aunt and uncle who's offered a lot of love, but sometimes they've kind of made some sort of remarks as jokes that I may have taken the wrong way, but I never really spoke up. So this was like the first time in my entire life, in my opinion, that I was actually kind of a little bit disrespectful and aggressive versus being assertive. And so the one thing I want to say about this in terms of mercy is I forgive myself. My aunt and uncle forgives me. It's in the past, but I had to let go of the reality that in my mind, I couldn't save my dad. It was written that he was going to pass away at the time that he passed, at the hour that he passed, at the day that he passed. And nothing that I maybe could have done or not done would have unwinded that reality. And the reason I'm sharing that in the relationships to mercy and being assertive and being aggressive because obviously people get mad, right? People get into fights, people become aggressive, people start screaming, people start yelling. Unfortunately, there's situations where there's innocent lives that are taken. There's public shootings, which is aggressions, aggressive behavior. So being assertive is a huge, important tool on like how to basically substantiate from being aggressive or being violent and be able to speak with confidence, clarity, and kindness in order to get your message across. So today's podcast is going to be for those of us who might have been a pushover or who don't usually state what's on their mind clearly with confidence. This is a way to kind of teach you guys or just teach myself and remind myself how to be assertive, confident, clear, state your point of view and calm. So we begin in the name of God. So I want to walk you guys kind of through 4 decades of my life. And yes, I am not 28, I promise. But I want to walk you guys through 4 decades of my life of there's basically like what's considered by Andrew Salter, who's a psychologist. He's an American psychologist, and he created the 3 C's of assertiveness. And the 3 C's are confidence, clarity, and control. Okay. And I'm gonna walk you guys 3 decades of my life, kind of sharing different ways where I wasn't assertive with confidence, clarity, and control. And maybe the last one where I was assertive and I did have control. And the reason I want to share the 3 decades with you, little stories of the 3 decades, is because being assertive is a gift. It doesn't come with everyone's personality trait. Some people are assertive and a little bit aggressive, but being assertive is so vital to everyone's centering and state of peace. So the first story that I want to talk is in relations to confidence. So I went to a Catholic and a Christian school up to 3rd grade, and then I went to a public school where I was really badly bullied for like 2 years, maybe 2 or 3 years, and it was really severe. It was physical, emotional, and abuse and violence towards me every single day as a young girl. And it basically deteriorated my level of confidence. And the reason I'm sharing this is because I did try to become assertive one day. So in becoming assertive, I went ahead and I told my mom that I was being bullied. And so she had a meeting with the principal and the girls. And the next day after the meeting was over, the bullying got worse. So imagine kind of the confidence now being even more shredded and even worse because the confidence that I had to be assertive and stick up for myself ended up going south and it ended up going worse than the initial state. So the reason that I'm sharing this with you is because it doesn't mean that when you're being assertive, the message is going to be received in a way that has a positive outcome. But perhaps that's not necessarily the major intention behind being assertive. Being assertive means being able to collectively and calmly stand up for yourself. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you can control the outcome. And being able to kind of sometimes, find other solutions to receive the outcome. Maybe if I could have, I would have moved schools. At that point I couldn't. But the way I did kind of formulate a change in my life towards my son's life is because he was being bullied also in third grade, and it was getting worse. Even though I've been talking to the parent, the next day it would get worse. So what I did with confidence to kind of change direction is I transferred schools. I transferred schools to a private school where he was very, very happy. And I'm sharing that because sometimes the distinction of your confidence and assertiveness may not even be in the state that may benefit you and may benefit actions in the future that kind of are remnants of what you wish were done for you. At that time, my parents were working really hard and working really hard shifts, so it would have been impossible for them to have changed schools, and there weren't a lot of private Islamic schools at the time. But the point being is that sometimes being assertive may trickle down to future generations or just learning lessons that can help you feel confident as maybe a mother versus a child. So the second decade that I wanted to go through is clarity. And so now I'm going to take you into my 20s. I had just recently gotten married. And I remember I mentioned that I have a mental health condition, and I was actually going to be taking a flight 2 weeks early to visit my family in India, my husband's family in India, to spend quality time with my father-in-law. And I really distinctly remember that night telling my husband that I think I'm going to end up in an episode. I think I'm not well. I'm not well. And I was very, very clear that to him that I did not want to go on this trip, that I was going to maybe end up getting sick. And he basically said, I think you're going to be fine. Just have confidence. Don't worry about it. Go on the plane. We don't want to waste the ticket money. And so with clarity in my mind at the time that I would have been okay and taking his boost of confidence, I actually boarded the plane. And lo and behold, I ended up having a major episode in front of all my relatives in India. It was humiliating to my parents. It was humiliating to me. And the reason I'm sharing this story with clarity is that it's really, really core to understand that being assertive, it really does mean that you are very, very confident in what you are trying to say, the message you're trying to convey. And being assertive means, like I said, not being aggressive in the way you convey it. So I boarded the plane. I ended up having a huge, meltdown in India. And then lo and behold, my husband came and took a flight before the 2 weeks where he was going to come. And he took an emergency flight, which would have cost him the same ticket money or more than had I canceled the trip and booked the flight with him. And so I'm sharing this vulnerable story with you guys to share that clarity and conviction are a huge part of your ability to be assertive, and knowing yourself and feeling the confidence that the message you're trying to convey, you will stand up for. Because standing up for yourself is your human right. The last one that I wanted to say is control, which I wanted to take you basically into my 30s. So in my 30s, I remember actually my 40s, I'm sorry, my 40s, I'm skipping a decade. But in my 40s, I remember like I went ahead and my son, no, actually it was in my 30s, it was my late 30s, but my son was graduating from kindergarten. And once again, it's a story with my husband. I went ahead and we were at his kindergarten graduation. I hadn't slept very well, and I wanted to take a 20-minute nap in the car. And he basically said, like, no, I want you to stay. I don't want you to miss the graduation. What if you oversleep? And I ended up going ahead and telling him, please give me the keys to the car no matter what. I do need to sleep. And I basically forced him to give me the keys because I did take a 20 nap and come back for the graduation on time. But once again, that was me being in control. At that time in my life, I started to learn that part of assertiveness is knowing your boundaries, knowing what you like, what you don't like, and knowing yourself enough to assert what you need and be the biggest gift and the biggest advocate for yourself. So, the main thing about assertiveness also is that being assertive and being calm in the way you convey your message is you kind of being confident, and it doesn't really necessarily matter about the way the person will react because you're trying to basically be assertive for yourself. And so a perfect another example is I have a friend of mine right now. You guys see her with me on Instagram a lot. Her name is Patty. And I've been telling her that we need to get healthy and go to the gym. Let's go to the gym after work at night. And she finally spoke up and said, Shabana, I don't want to go to the gym at night after 9 o'clock because it winds me up even more and I won't be able to sleep. So that is like a simple example of her knowing her body, her knowing that working out at night is not going to help her, it's going to harm her, and basically her speaking up for herself in a way that advocates clarity, control, and in a sincere way, in a kind way, and also confidence of what she knows is good for her and not good for her. So keep in mind, like being assertive is kind of like relaying through speech what is good for a person and what is not good for a person. And it's so vital because when we look at places right now that are in war, that are in turmoil, that they're in chaos, a lot of it has to do is because the dominant effect of assertiveness is not happening through speech. It's happening through other realms of violence, which is not acceptable. And the whole point of the Mercy Mission and the Mercy Queen podcast is to get people to start talking again, to start loving again, and to feel hope emanate as beautiful as the sun and the moon itself. So there are normally considered four rules of assertiveness, and I'm gonna state them. These are not rules that I created; they're rules that you can also kind of Google on the internet. But I want to speak to them a little bit with my own gnosis of what I believe these rules imply. So, four rules of assertiveness is first of all, like you need to know what the situation is, right? A situation could be like I have a best friend who loves me like crazy. She's kind of like the 24-hour 5 cent therapist from basically like Snoopy, right? And she's always there for me. And there's times where I may want to come over and she'll say, Shivana, I'm too tired, not now. And that is, and that to me is her setting a boundary and her telling me that she can't be a host to me and she doesn't want to and she feels close enough to tell me that, but understanding the situation. Because at times when she's telling me that, Shabana, I can't host you right now, I don't want company, it's me understanding the message that she's tired and respecting that. So that's another example of a situation where being assertive and communicative, because I wouldn't want her to host me and have a mental breakdown. I wouldn't want her to host me and feel fatigued, right? So basically, being assertive to a point where you understand the situation, the message is received. Now, keep in mind, I want to stress again that sometimes in being assertive, the message may not be received well. So that's where things can turn into aggression, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Um, what is the sentiment behind the situation? So once again, when you're being assertive and saying, hey, I don't like this, or I wish things were like this, or I am not feeling like this, you're basically adding a sentiment to the situation. And keep in mind that because people lack communicative skills, not everyone is going to be able to say, hey, I'm tired right now. I'd rather not have you come over, or I may not make this deadline. So if I'm trying to share this with you because if someone's not communicative sometimes in the most ideal way, also sometimes making excuses for that. Like if my friend just says like, no, you're not coming over. Sometimes connect the dots. Sometimes connect the dots and make excuses for the person in a way that gives them the benefit of the doubt. And that's a really good way of kind of receiving an assertive message. And then the next thing is when you're trying to be assertive, number three is what is your explanation? So the explanation requires clarity. So for example, like, I'm sorry, I don't want to I don't want to put this work on myself because I don't want to overcommit and underdeliver. So that is basically another way of telling someone that, hey, I have limitations, I have boundaries. I am sorry, but I am not sorry because I'm not able to perform this task for you at this moment. And the fourth way is to kind of create the assertiveness within a request. So I would just say you're going to your manager, you've been having stress at home with your childhood teenager. And when you're going and you're offering clarity that, look, I'm going through a hard time with my family, how are you presenting the request? And the way you present the request with assertiveness is calmly, sincerely, communicatively, kindly. And hopefully mercy will be the response to your assertiveness. So also keep in mind sometimes that people sometimes use assertiveness in the form of silence. Sometimes a couple will fight and someone may be assertive with being quiet. And I honestly think that might sometimes people may hate that. Like, oh my gosh, every time I'm mad at my boyfriend, he just becomes quiet on me or my girlfriend. That might be a little bit more of a healing, kind way of being assertive versus lashing out with your tongue. For those of you guys who know the Mercy Queen, she can sometimes lash out. She can sometimes become angry and say things that she doesn't mean. She apologizes to everyone when she does it, but that's also because I have in my 40s learned to be assertive. I was not assertive in my 10s, in the decade when I was 10, in my 20s, in my 30s, I started to learn what being assertive meant in a calm way. And so I'm still learning how sometimes not to get a little bit aggressive in a way that's demeaning to myself and demeaning to the person I'm communicating to. Because sometimes you're even in a relationship, whether it's husband and wife, whether it's mother and daughter, whether it's son and father, and you start becoming aggressive in the way you communicate. And the goal for the ideal goal is to try not to be aggressive at all. It's to be able to stand your ground, to be communicative, to share the clear message, and to say it in an I statement that I wish you wouldn't do this, or I would prefer if you would stop doing this, even if the message needs to be told multiple times so that it's clear, it's communicated, and hopefully a powerful resolution that empowers both parties is emanated from that. So I wanted to go over some assertive statements that you guys can make or learn to say in a way that are empowering versus disempowering. So, for example, you could start off an assertive, affirmation by saying, "Thank you for thinking of me, but I'll have to say no. Thank you for thinking of me, but I'll have to say no." So, I'm sure my friend who's videotaping for me is going to use that from now on. She's going to say, "Thank you for thinking of me, but don't come over." Another one can be like, an apology form. It can be, "Unfortunately, I can't take on this task right now, but maybe in the future when I'm able, I would love to offer you my help." So one was in a form of gratitude, one is in a form of an apology, but you're still conveying the message. Another one is, if someone's kind of walking away, or if someone's being aggressive, or someone's hanging up the phone on you when you're trying to be assertive, because keep in mind, we all have those people in our lives that when you're being assertive, they actually may kind of walk away, or they may hang up on you, or they may not let you communicate in a way that is clear. You could just kind of call back and say, "Please don't walk away from me," or "Please don't hang up on me. I'm trying to share with you in clear conversation how I feel." And in doing that, you're kind of you're restabilizing the imbalance of maybe someone receiving your message aggressively. And you're also not compromising who you want to be in the situation by not being aggressive. And it can escalate to aggressive when someone's mistreating you. But the main thing is to hold your ground, sustain your stance and what you're trying to say. Try to be polite and then breathe. If you need to take a step back and breathe. And keep in mind, I'm saying this hopefully so that I also don't get, aggressive sometimes, for example, with my husband or my kid. But everyone also makes mistakes. And so we all do sometimes become aggressive in the way we communicate. But I think in practicing breathing exercising, in practicing empathy and kindness to yourself, hopefully when you're communicating, you can constantly try to be calm and communicate in the most effective way. Another way that you can also do to kind of assert yourself sometimes is say that I really respect your opinion, but I actually agree to disagree. And in saying that, for example, you're basically saying that it's okay for the person to have a very altered opinion from what you have, but you agree to disagree with them, and that it's okay to disagree. I felt really, really bad what happened to Charlie Kirk. It's sad that his family is orphaned, that his wife is a widow now, and he should not have been shot. There's no way, even if people don't like his views, there's no way in a world today where there is so much AI, there's so much technology, that there should be that level of violence and mass public audiences. There just shouldn't be. There shouldn't be war. There shouldn't be children starving in the world. there shouldn't be a lack of resources when there's so much out there. So my plea for humanity is for people to have self-awareness, confidence, empathy, and respect, because these are very key to being assertive and to also being merciful and kind. The last thing that I wanted to say is having emotional honesty is really, really integral to any relationship, whether it's work, whether it's your family, whether it's your friends. And if you're not able to enhance the direct expressive communication with emotional honesty, while being kind of diplomatic and tactful, you're basically not having someone respect boundaries or respect your way of the way you feel. And if someone's not doing that, then you really need to weigh the balance of your level to be assertive with them, being calm with them, but is that relationship really serving you? And that is another episode that I'm going to do is mercy in relationships. What relationships should you maybe say, you know what? I loved you with all my heart, but I need to let you go. Because if someone is not respecting your wishes and your thoughts and your philosophies and showing, maybe not empathy, maybe not love, but at least an understanding of what you're at the core of what you're trying to communicate, and they're constantly shutting you down, they're constantly belittling you, they're constantly telling you that you're wrong, they're constantly cutting you off, and the worst of it is when they're constantly doing the exact opposite of what you are saying, then maybe it's time to get the other job. Or maybe it's time to relook at the relationship, take it to a counselor, take it to therapy. Because the core of any relationship, the main core is respect. And if there's no respect, it's very hard to assert the three C's in any effective way. Um, Last but not least, I just want to close with this very short podcast that I say this and I say it again and again. It's the Mercy Queen quote, but you say you're just a meager soul, but within you lies the keys to the universe. Everyone has so much power and so much love to offer and so much kindness. At least we hope that the world does. And in a world right now where there is chaos and there is a lot of despair, the Mercy Queen wishes you hope, kindness, assertiveness, peace, love, and sama.
Sometimes I wish I was flawless, but then I'd miss the beauty in the mess. I am beautifully imperfect, a canvas filled with scars. I am every broken piece, reaching for the stars. I am the fire that doesn't fade, even when it's hard. I am beautifully imperfect, and that's my greatest art. I am the laughter after tears, the courage in my fears. I am the dreamer chasing light through every passing year. Sometimes I wish I could rewind, erase the pain I've known, but every step has shaped my soul and helped me find my home. Sometimes I wish I was flawless, but then I'd miss the beauty in the mess. I am beautifully imperfect, a canvas filled with scars. I am every broken piece, reaching for the stars. I am the fire that doesn't fade, even when it's hard. I am beautifully imperfect, and that's my greatest art. I am the rhythm of my heart, I am the light within the dark. Sometimes I wish I could escape, but I am enough, I choose my fate.